Hey guys, sorry about the wait. It's Reg with Elevate Podcast. We tried to do something new tonight where we were trying to stream to Twitter as well as to YouTube so that we could get more of you folks involved in this. But unfortunately, Riverside was just not having it at all. So sorry about that. We really wanted you to be able to tune in multiple ways, but I guess we're just going to have to figure out a new path forward for that. But anyway, we love our technical difficulties and we take them in stride. But so glad that you're here with us tonight to talk everything from Pierre's announcement that he's going to be running in Alberta in a by-election and what Mark Carney has to say about that, and a little bit about the future has in store for Alberta, what the announcements that came through for Danielle Smith have been, and then also what we're looking at as far as the national unity crisis that might be on the horizon. So Josh is going to jump in here in a little bit, and we'll get him on because him and I actually disagree on Pierre in Alberta. So once he jumps on, we'll make sure to dive into that one. But first off, I really wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that are happening in this country because it is unprecedented. It's kind of crazy, and so the first things first, I wanted to show you a little bit of what Danielle Smith put out there. I know that you've probably seen a couple videos, but I thought her answering the media around what she's done to change the Citizen Act in Alberta and how that actually influences their political system and what the media has been saying. And she kind of does a really great job answering the media. It kind of made me reminiscent of almost like Pierre's apple eating scene. So I'm going to play that for you all so you can see it. And share the screen. Okay, so have a look at this one.
Reach treaty agreements. The Citizen Initiative Act, I think, is the purest form of democracy we have, and it gives all Albertans an opportunity to play a direct role in the democratic process by inviting them to have a direct say on issues their fellow citizens want to put to the people. Any Albertan can put an idea forward on any topic, and if they're able to get the number of signatures, then it would go to a vote, and that includes a vote of members of First Nations, and we encourage Indigenous peoples to participate in the process.
My follow-up is, and I know that you said that you want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, and I see that you're saying that this would be the purest form of democracy, but you've also lowered the threshold for any referendum to happen, which we know will very much probably include a referendum on Alberta separatism. Are you risking the province's relationship with Indigenous people to appease a vocal minority who want to separate from Canada?
The changes that are proposed in the Elections Act, I had put in the minister's mandate letter when I first signed off on it in 2023. And it was in looking at the way in which propositions are put forward around the world, in particular California, which seems to have the most successful opportunity for citizens to engage in the process. They have anywhere from 5 to 10 propositions every year, but their measures are actually quite a bit lower than ours. It's 5% for a statutory change based on the previous level of vote for the governor, and 8% for constitutional changes. So actually ours is still higher than what we see in other jurisdictions. It needs to be high, but it also needs to.
So I'm just pausing it for a second. I love the fact that she like calls out California. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, California, super liberal in the United States, already has this. And by the way, their standards are lower.
To be achievable. And that's what we're trying to achieve with this balance.
Sorry, I just feel like I'm not getting an answer, though, on whether this could be a risk in terms of the province's relationships with Indigenous people.
Well, I'm not going to prejudge what citizens are going to do for a petition. Once there's a petition on the table and there's an active discussion from citizens having achieved the requisite number of signatures, I'd be happy to answer your question. Right now, this is just enabling legislation so that any citizen is able to go out, garner signatures, and if they're successful, then I guess you can ask me to comment on what is actually on the table. You're putting forward a hypothetical that doesn't exist.
So I love that, right? She's just straight up saying, "Hey, we don't know what's going to come to us." Like rightfully so, you actually do know what's coming for you. You know the referendum is going to be around whether or not Alberta should separate or say, but she's playing it well. She's saying, like this is just a policy piece. This is putting democracy back in the hands of citizens. This is allowing them to have a voice in what gets put forward and what gets talked about in the halls of the legislature. So she's like, it could lead to a referendum. It could be, in some jurisdictions they held the same thing around rent control and different left-leaning policies. And she makes that comment later on, but I won't play the whole clip for you. But I just thought it was hilarious that she kind of like calls it out, being like, left-leaning jurisdictions do this already. They put forward their legislation that they want to put forward anyway. So why are we getting so upset about this? And then she's like, they reported, oh, First Nations are saying that they don't support Alberta separating from Canada. And she's like, we just have this out here now. Like, we are just lowering the threshold, increasing it to 120 days, 10% of the eligible vote. Like, this is just happening now. Like, why are you talking about Alberta separating? We haven't even had that conversation yet. I'm not going to comment on something that hasn't even come to pass, which honestly, good for her. Like, we know that's coming. And frankly, a lot of people are feeling like they want it. So I'm curious to see what other folks are saying in the chat there about it. But to be quite honest, I think she played that one really, really well. And I wanted to also show you another clip, basically around the fact that folks are in Alberta are just, they're fed up. And the reason why Alberta really wants to hold these kind of referendums to separate. And I know I saw there's a couple Albertans in the chat, so glad that you guys are on there. And I see Carl says, sad day for the mustache bra. I will say that my wife was not a fan of the mustache. I loved it. I went to work and all my friends at work, all the guys loved it. All the women did not love it. And the woman that kind of matters most to me did not love it. And so when I got rid of it, it was a better day in the Manzer household. So it had to go. But yeah, so back to kind of Alberta and the Prosperity project. So basically, I'm going to show you a clip from Bridge News. So that's out of Lethbridge, Alberta. And that was the one I actually jumped on probably a week or 2 weeks ago, maybe. Just kind of speaking about polling data and how you kind of interpret that. But they did a really good job because they had this constitutional lawyer come on and really kind of describe what is happening in the minds of Albertans and why it's such an issue. Because I've been seeing a lot of left-wing creators coming out and saying, oh, Alberta's just sour because they didn't get their guy. And it's like, no. And I think it was even Frank on Twitter, or not Twitter, sorry, TikTok. He was kind of like, what's Alberta going to do with their oil? Like, what are they going to do? Like, where are they going to send it through? And it's like, well, they kind of have this great big neighbor to the south that has some really big energy needs. So, I wonder where it's going to go. So, yeah, but the thing is, though, it's not even just that. And I think that that's the part that people need to get over. It's not just energy, because they, bring up like, oh, well, Alberta got the pipeline. Trudeau bought that pipeline. They should be happy. They should be grateful. They should be happy that Ottawa is really paying attention to them. And it's like, well, no. And so I'll let this guy from the Prosperity Project, this constitutional lawyer, kind of really break it down a little bit for us. And then we can have a discussion about that so that you can really have a good understanding of what really is the issue here. So I'll play that for you.
I guess, what is the driving motivation to see Alberta separate from the rest of Canada? I'm assuming this has to do with...
I mean, the motivation is the same as it's always been. We're a colonized people. We're basically a colony of Quebec and Ontario. We're completely discriminated against within Confederation. Ontario and Quebec are guaranteed 3 seats each on the Supreme Court. Alberta's lucky if it ever gets one. The Maritimes, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia together are entitled to 20 seats in the Senate. Their population combined is 2 million. Ours is almost 5. We only get 6. So they almost have 7 times more Senate seats than we do. Quebec only has 9 million people, so it's barely double Alberta's population. It's guaranteed 24 Senate seats. Ontario's guaranteed 24 Senate seats. Alberta is basically treated like a colony of Eastern Canada, and we're sick and tired of it.
Send us your oil and gas money and equalization payments and just shut up. That's basically kind of how we feel.
And so they kind of do a really good job there, where he just kind of breaks it down. He's like, look at the political makeup in Ottawa. So it's more than just the oil and gas, and it's more than just the fact that, the equalization payments, as he says at the end, which is obviously the crap cherry on the crap cake, where he's saying, send us your oil and equalization payments and shut the hell up. But it's that shut the hell up part that we need to kind of pull apart, that he does a really good job in the beginning when he says, look at the way Senate seats are distributed. Look at the way ridings are distributed. The fact that Alberta has less Senate seats and less influence in Ottawa and less Supreme Court judges in Ottawa than, when you look at the Maritimes, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI, which have a population of half the size, less than half the size of Alberta. They're like, what the heck, man? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why is our voice so muted? And well, we know why, because we've had, I think it was like 77% of all elected candidates have been Liberal. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, we have all these Liberal folks in Ottawa, and we know that the Maritimes, that's PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, typically vote Liberal. Why the hell would they want to change that? They want to make sure that the three different branches of government stay in that Liberal kind of sphere of things. They want to make sure that, we see that the Senate and that the judiciary are all kind of supporting whatever the House of Commons is putting out there, as long as it aligns with the Liberal ideologies. And so that's the part that's really, really important to recognize here. I think that if there were some dramatic changes legislatively around how much representation Alberta will get in Ottawa, um, the repeal of some of these bills that are anti-energy for Alberta, that Prime Minister, or sorry, Premier Daniel Smith has kind of like come on record saying, like, this is going to kneecap our economy in Alberta. Like, these are the things that they'll have to put forward in order to kind of keep a unified Canada. Because I think right now what you're seeing is that you're seeing the Liberals kind of calling the Conservative bluff in Alberta, where they're saying, basically, we don't think that Alberta wants to separate badly enough. We don't think that they've, been bled dry enough. And so they're kind of calling that bluff, right? And so it's going to be up to Albertans to respond and say, you know what? If you don't give us what we need to be independent or to actually have a voice in this country, uh, we're gone. And so I think that that's the part that's going to be really interesting. And the part is where this rubber meets the road is when Ottawa goes, oh crap, the billions upon billions of dollars that we collect out of this province, that we extract out of this province thanklessly, uh, what are we going to do? We need that revenue, and there's not enough heat pumps or solar panels in the world that's going to replace the billions upon billions of dollars that that industry provides to this country, that essentially pays for the healthcare and well-being of citizens from coast to coast. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I'm just looking at the chat here. Um, yeah, not a colony of Quebec and Ontario, a colony of England and Quebec. Yeah, it's interesting. I know I don't know if folks had seen that basically Carney called up King Charles and Queen Camilla, and they're going to grace us with their oh holy presence on May the 27th to do a throne speech here in Canada. So that will be that'll be interesting. I don't know what your feelings are on the monarchy. Personally, I think it's an outdated concept. I think that the fact that Canada even has a monarchy is kind of wild in this day and age. But hey, we already coronated Carney as King of Canada, so what's one king to another king, right? But yeah, Kebby, if Alberta leaves Canada, Canada will be net zero. That's true. Well, what's wild is that we kind of are economically net zero already. Like, that's the part that's insane. And the only reason why we even have a balance of exports to imports is because of the fact that we export so much oil to the States. Like, this is the part that I think that most Canadians don't realize, just how huge this industry is. and how much it affects their everyday life. People lost their mind about the carbon tax on gas, and yet, now that the carbon tax is done, they're like, oh, well, this is fine. It's like, do you not realize that the carbon tax is only half done? That we're still seeing the industrial side of that affect Alberta primarily and affect industries that are producing the gas that are going to go into your vehicles. So it's like you might see like a tax relief on the pump right now, but the actual price of the fuel is still heavily inflated because of the pricing that's affecting oil and gas producers across the country. So it's an interesting time to be alive, that's for sure. And yeah, what's really also super interesting that I wanted to bring up about this too is that Danielle Smith, when she brought out this, idea of the constitutional challenge, it is really kind of a big middle finger to Alberta. It is also kind of a really big protection method or mechanism for Albertans because we watched what happened in Spain. And what I'm finding is that I didn't see a lot of coverage from mainstream media on what happened in Spain. There was like a buried article here and there. So I don't know if you folks saw it, what happened, but I'll share kind of what was written about in the Globe and Mail actually. So basically, what happened in Spain, they had multiple rolling blackouts that affected most of the country and Portugal. And basically, what has been described as the fact that they've been shutting down their traditional electricity generation systems and replacing it with renewable systems. And while, it's admirable that you're trying to create energy from cleaner sources. The problem is that they have actively been denuclearizing themselves. And when you have a system that relies on either wind or on sunlight, and you have something that affects that, then basically what happens is that that will cause rolling blackouts to happen because you'll have no level load on the grid. And so either if you have too much production, you'll see the grid shut down in order to protect itself so that you don't get massive energy spikes that fry everybody's electronics. Or if you don't have enough production, you see that grid because there's not enough load on the system that it will basically shut itself down to protect itself from not having enough energy. And so what happened in Spain is that because these systems in place uh, couldn't handle those changes in load, it basically caused a massive blackout that completely put Spain and Portugal both in the dark. And they were showing the fact that, high speed trains that they use electricity for, hospitals, street lights, all kinds of systems that you use to cool themselves because you have to realize they're a lot closer to the equator. So they're a lot warmer right now. All those systems failed because they didn't have the energy. I'm going to jump over to Robin here. Robin Graham says, there may have been some gnarly interference from the ionosphere from weakening magnetic field of Earth. These might start happening randomly throughout the world in the coming years. I did hear that. I did hear that because of solar activity, that was what actually affected the solar panels in Spain and caused a lot of this fluctuation in the load on the energy grid. And so this is where you kind of have to really think and say, okay, we need to make sure that what we're doing to produce energy isn't harming the environment, but at the same time balancing the risk to the fact that we need to make sure that the energy we're producing is reliable. And so whether that means we need to get better at storage in some ways, I know I've seen a couple different methodologies where they take wind power, use it to pump water uphill, and then release that through basically like a hydroelectric dam, because hydroelectric dams are one of the most sustainable and reliable sources of electricity out there. But we can't dam up every single thing. But what I've seen happen is that they've actually used these renewable sources to actually work in tandem with other things. But the problem is they're really expensive systems to build. And if you're already a country that's on the brink of economic crisis, the last thing you need to do is pour a bunch of money into a system that is not as efficient as, say a natural gas or a nuclear facility. So it's a tough one. Yeah. But I did also, yeah. So Robin, I did hear that it was partially caused by a solar flare that had basically kind of ravaged their ability to produce energy. And it's funny because, like, I don't know if you guys noticed this year, but we had so many sightings in this northern hemisphere of the northern lights, like very south in the northern hemisphere, that we just have never seen before. Like, I've grown up where we had like a little splash of blue, or sorry, a little splash of green or a little splash of red here and there, like every, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. But this year was just unprecedented with the amount of northern lights that we had, and that's all caused by the sun sending out solar energy across our ionosphere, causing those particles to light up and get excited and create those visual spectacles that we see. So if we're seeing that happen right now, and we're seeing how that plays out with our energy grid with solar, it's like, I don't know if that's like the end all be all that they make it out to be. But anyway, that's a long long deep dive into energy. So oh, I've got some bad feedback. Okay.
What are we doing here? Holy smokes.
Josh, you're on. Josh, you're on.
Yeah, holy jumping. It's Friday night, boys and gals. How are we doing over here? Holy jumping. What have you talked about so far, Reg?
I gotta figure out how to stop your thing from giving me feedback here.
Yeah, first step, put some headphones in. That's the key. Let's go.
Just a second.
Put your speakers on mute. The boys got it going. What's been a crazy day hasn't appeared, and folks, I'm happy to be on with y'all and happy for Reg. Thank you, Reg, trying to doing your best and doing a great job. Holding it down, doing a one-man live stream is not easy. It's not easy. Did that for a couple months, and there's a reason why I don't do it anymore. It's tough. It's exhausting. So shout out Reg for doing that. And we love Reg, and we love the deep dives he does and the knowledge he brings to the table. It's fantastic. He is great. But man, what a day. It was interesting seeing Mark Carney, wasn't it? Him stepping in, talking to the people, saying, this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we're moving forward. And quite frankly, I was talking to Jasmine earlier today, and it was interesting, her and I talking, saying, there's really nothing much he said that actually concerned me. It was almost like I actually liked it. It was almost, as if I was listening to Pierre Poilievre. I was like, what is happening right now? Even CBC, David Cochrane said, this is pretty much the conservative platform he just talked about. And I was a little confused. I was a little perturbed and so much torn. And I was like, where are we going with this? Everything you just said is exactly the opposite of what you've been talking about for years up to this point, including your book values. What is going to be happening? Are you trying to screw with us? Are you trying to take our guard down before you really come in? That's where I'm at right now, Reg. That's where I'm confused and trying to figure out where all this goes.
I totally think that it's the same thing. I think he's just getting everybody buttered up, and then he's going to throw his ridiculousness at everybody to see.
Do you think part of it is the fact that we're not going to be in Parliament for a long time? So like, I think it's 20 days and they're going on summer break, and it's just like, there's just not much to really get into. So he's like, you know what, just play. I know everyone was really perked up over the election. People are frustrated, trying to bring the tensions low and then hit them hard once they get back in the fall, is my guess.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the things that I thought was very interesting today that I have actually on. I'm sorry. I'm getting way bad feedback here.
Gee, let's take a look at my echo client. Let's see if I can do this. You want to see if you can check off my echo cancellation on your side?
Can't be done while recording.
Well, that sucks.
Okay. But one of the things I wanted to show you was basically Mark Carney saying that he's going to support the by-election.
Yeah.
So let me pull that up for you.
Thank you, Regilicious.
I've already Mr. Poilievre, if it's the decision of him and the Conservative Party to trigger, if I put it that way, a by-election, I will ensure that it happens as soon as possible. No games, nothing, straight.
Yes, so there you have it. Mark Carney saying he's going to bring that by-election on. And to me, that is telling and concerning, honestly. And I think that was a piece that I wanted to get into tonight around whether or not Poilievre taking that by-election and taking that position in Alberta is a good idea.
Well, I know we're gonna have a fun conversation about this, aren't we?
I'm gonna try to do my best with the echo.
Yeah, you have a lot to fight through on your end, so I guess I get the advantage in this debate. Yeah, like first off, there's a couple things Carney's doing there, right? First thing is he wants to come across as a prime minister. He wants to come across as the uniter, someone who isn't going to divide the country as his predecessor did quite a lot. And I think this is him trying to kind of show that, we'll bring Poilievre in, we'll make sure that by-election happens snap quick, because I want to make it look like that I'm not worried about him. I want to make it look like I'm not dodging him, because what has this show done? And shows like ours been doing through the whole election, up to the election and then through the election. Mark Carney's scared. He's dodging Pierre Poilievre. He doesn't want to debate him. That's what all the rhetoric has been. And I'm sure this was his move to show, I'm not scared of Poilievre. You can come in, go over to Alberta, go get yourself a seat, then come to the House of Commons and let's have a conversation. That is the stance I believe he's taking here. And you talked about there, whether this was a smart move for Poilievre, whether this was the right thing to do, because this has been the debate. Everyone's having it. You and I have had this conversation. Jasmine and I have been having this conversation. I've had this conversation with my friends. Is it wise and smart for Poilievre to go and take another sure conservative seat so he can get into the House of Commons? My question is, who else is it going to be, Reg? Who else is going to get you 8 million votes? Who is it? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. Hit me with your argument.
Michael Barrett.
Michael Barrett, not ready yet.
I think
Justin Trudeau. He has good hair, though.
Yeah. I think that Poilievre honestly was not loved by people across the Canada.
Yeah.
So I just think that by putting him back in place, you have people who are like, oh, Pierre was a wiener. I didn't like him, but he got elected and he won a seat. And now you have people that are going, Pierre is a wiener and a loser, and it's just taking a seat. And how undemocratic of him. So I get it. I just think it doesn't send the right message. It just says Pierre's a loser and had to go take a seat from somebody else to actually have a seat.
All right, so I'll hit you with this. I understand that. I can see that being the case. But then what's the other argument here is the Conservatives have a third leader that they put in, or essentially a fourth leader at this point, over the past 10 years to go against Liberals. What does that register as? Like, the Conservatives haven't had a leader in place for 2 cycles back to back yet. It's always been someone different. I think it's time that they need to build on somebody. I think Pierre is that guy currently. And this is where things start getting weird, right? I'm going to be hated for saying this. That's okay. I think it's time for the likes of Jenny Byrne to exit stage right and let someone else come in with some campaign strategy. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
So my echo so bad in the chat is hearing it.
No. All right. Let me see here. Can you just stop the recording?
Yeah, I think so.
Do that. We'll come right back.
Okay, let's see if that worked.
I hope it did. We'll see.
I don't have any echo again. Yay!
That's so wild. I didn't hear a dang thing on my side. That's crazy.
Yay!
That's so wild. I didn't hear a dang thing on my side. That's crazy.
Oh, it was hateful. Oh yeah, all the chat. Yay, so much better. Oh, guys, you don't even understand. Trying to have a conversation on that too. Like, well, yeah, you would understand. You heard it all. Oh man, amateur hour. But yeah,
we'll
so
get back once baby's getting a little stronger. We'll be back in studio doing this together. So
yeah, exactly. But yeah, basically, yeah, Jenny Byrne, man. Hearing so much about her and what she's done to that party. Robin says yay for Echo Fix. um, but anyway, yeah, basically hearing what she's done to that party and how divided it's made some of those individuals within the party, but nobody feels like they can speak up. It's
Mhm.
interesting because I heard from somebody who's very close within the party who basically said like Pierre's got an army around him right now, and it's kind of like everybody from your top brass to your low level conservatives are basically saying like we have to support Pierre because if we are the one person who's not supporting Pierre, like we're gonna look real bad. And basically it's like here's the door, bye bye, see ya. So like I get that they want to be a united front and that they want to make sure that they are doing things in lockstep, but I think that you really need to kind of look at the fact that half the country didn't want him. And I think that, and that was after the Conservatives had such a commanding lead after, Trudeau left. People hated Trudeau so much that they were going to vote Conservative. And there was so many people who, there was like people who reluctantly voted Conservative that I've heard from that they hated Pierre and they reluctantly voted Conservative. But then there's also the people who like reluctantly voted Liberal just because they hated Pierre. And so I don't know if it's a situation where it doesn't matter who they put in there that the CBC is going to tear them down, or if it's going to be a situation where it actually is a problem with Pierre himself.
Mm. So I think let's go to some. I mean, everyone's been doing this for the past week. I've been taking some time to think about it. There's a reason I haven't really hit much of a post-mortem on this on the show is because I haven't had complete thoughts about this yet. But I think I'm there. And this is the conversation I've been having with people, and some of them are shocked by my take on this. But quite frankly, when it comes to this past campaign, there's honestly only one thing that I would have changed if I was Poilievre. And that was the minute the conversation on the 51st state started bringing up. The fact he took the same stance as Carney on that is what hurt him the most.
No.
I'll say that. It could have been, that was a situation. Obviously, this is all hindsight. Hindsight's 2020, right? But when I look back on that, and I remember thinking at the time, is if you could have just been the adult in the room, backtracked, taken a step back, and be like, guys, is Trump actually for real on this? Look how we got to this point. Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago, misrepresented our trading relationship because we all know he's not that smart. Didn't know what was going on in the country. Do you think he gave truthful information to Trump? And Trump took that because he's the leader of Canada. He's like, okay, if that's the case, then why are we subsidizing you? And that's what he ran with. And then on top of that, Trump hated Trudeau and he just kept needling him until he stepped down. He bullied him out of the prime ministership. It was wild to watch. And then that happened. Then what did Trudeau do? Don't forget, he had the hot mic moment where he's like, Trump's really serious about taking over our country. That was all manufactured at every point in the way. Then the Liberals took that and ran with it for a whole campaign, fear-mongering all the way through. It would have been I think would have been the wise thing to do for Poilievre to be like, guys, let's take a step back. We have to really think, we have to look at the history of Trump. He's always been hyperbolic. He's the captain of the art of the deal. This is how he works. This is how he does things. He wants a better trade relationship. He wants a better trade deal. We will make sure that happens and make sure it works for us before it works for them. We want to make sure we have a mutual beneficial relationship here, but we're not going to be bullied into anything. Straight up, we're not going to give into this BS. But then two, this is what was the Conservatives were scared about doing. Then that would have been the moment. Early on, you hop on Rogan, you hop on Fox, you hop on CNN, you hop on MSNBC, you do the whole American circuit, explaining the actual trade relationship between Canada and the States. And then you would have won people over. You got in front of the CBCs, in front of the CTVs, in front of the globals of the world, regenerated and recreated what that argument really was, taking the wind out of the sails of Liberals and actually really helped people put everything into context and not be so fearful of this Donald Trump stuff.
I don't know if that would have happened. I honestly think what would happen is if Pierre Poilievre would have come out and been like, used reason, used logic, and said, this is not actually the case. I really think that a lot of people would have just been like, he's just burying his head in the sand. He's ignoring the issue. And then CBC would have ran with that narrative that he's out of touch. He doesn't understand the true dangers affecting the country. Like they really got an ace in the hole with Trump on that one, I think.
I
think there was
disagree. Disagree fully.
I don't think there was any way you could play that one that would have kind of been to his benefit, except for the fact that, like you said about, having a difference of opinion on how to deal with Trump and actually voicing that like Danielle Smith did. I thought Danielle Smith got so much respect at the same time as she got so much hate in this country, because she was like, you know what? We need to make sure that we're working with our neighbor to the south. Like, these are our allies. These are people who, receive most of our export. We need to work with them. And she went and did that. And I think if Pierre would have kind of like taken that same stance, at least it would have been different. It would have been truer to a lot of conservatives. And I think it would have, like, you could have pushed the narrative that he's a bridge builder and a negotiator, because basically what we saw in all those polls too was the fact that everybody thought Carney was this great, negotiator, this great bridge builder, this guy who's going to be able to talk Trump and get, what we need. And the way that you saw like programs like This Hour's 22 Minutes basically portraying Pierre Poilievre as this like whiny, sniveling little guy, like people that embedded in people's minds, right? So I think that there was not really a good way that you could have explained it logically to the people when they were already so emotionally charged and fearful because of what the media was spinning. I think that you would have had to respond emotionally again and be like, don't worry, everything's okay. Like, I've gone and talked to him, like, we're going to be good. And you would have had to have some frank conversations with Trump. But the problem is, I think, I don't know. I think Trump was really hoping for the Liberal win so that he could weaken the Canadian economy, as he said he was going to, which we see was playing out. So I don't know. I think that was a tough one.
Yeah, I still stand by what I said. Because I think again, it's all timing. I remember us having conversations with some in the party saying, "Oh, we can't even step over the border because we don't have a mandate. We're not the government." Like, there was this fear that was going on in the party. I think was hurtful. If they just decided to take a chance on this and they got in front of it, yes, CBC would have spun it. But the problem is, CBC was spinning it no matter what. No matter what was going to happen,
Yeah.
CBC was going to
Oh, yeah.
spin it. The difference is you would have been in front of the spin instead of being reactionary to the spin. So that would have actually given you a leg up rather than trying to like backpedal and try to figure out and play defense with what the media was going to do, versus just being like getting out there and hitting everything, clipping it up, pushing it out, being your own arbiter of truth before CBC can take it through their lens and push it out. So that was, I think it would have been a race. I'm not saying it would have been the fix, but I feel like it may have given them a better shot. But anyways.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can get behind it. Probably would have given them a better shot, but I don't know if it would have been the silver bullet that we were hoping for. I still think that there's a bit of stink around the three party leaders that kind of we've seen the past 5 years of things really declining around Canada. I think that there's a stench that's around Pierre, Jagmeet, Trudeau, that people are just having a hard time seeing past. And I think that one of the things we talked about was the fact that, like, this is now the fourth time. Like, do you swap out your coach again and hope that it leads to a better result? We see how that's not worked for Toronto in the past. So that's where I'm just kind of like, or do you stick with the guy that you actually have name recognition, that you have a loyal following and a base for? And the Conservatives did pick up more seats in this past election, but still not enough to win the majority, or to even win a minority government. So it's
I go back to this too, right? A lot of people made this point, which I thought was interesting. So you look at the amount of votes they got, 8 million, right? Which I think that 8 million comes out no matter what, who Poilievre was in front of. If it was Trudeau, it still would have been 8 million. I still think that. I think the difference is you take out the craziness what that was with Trump, and you put in someone, let's say it remained Trudeau, or it was Freeland or somebody else, and they come up and they 6.5, 7 million votes to the Conservative 8 million. If that happened, think of the way it was modeled out is that the Conservatives would have landed somewhere between 210 and 220 seats if they didn't get that Trump boost from the Liberals. Like that's the difference we would have seen in this election. And I think that is something that does play in my mind a little bit, where it's like Poilievre did that. Poilievre actually built a base around the party. Scheer couldn't do it. O'Toole couldn't do it, but Pierre could. And so that is something that's kind of playing in my mind a little bit too, where it's like, this was, again, it's a red herring event with what Trump was doing and trying to pull off, which no one had ever seen across the globe yet. Like the way he was interfering in these different countries. It was different. And I think that it really did cost the Conservatives in the long run. But that's where I'm like, I'm okay with going back to Poilievre because of that reason specifically. So,
yeah, I think we may kind of have like discussions about whether Poilievre should be in that position or not. But one of the things I think we can definitely agree on is Jenny Byrne got to go. She's got to go.
yeah, just get some fresh blood in there, right? Because like when I hear the top brass of like who was around Poilievre, a lot of older heads who've been around a while, who've who are essentially playing an older game versus playing the newer game. It almost felt like they were doing podcasts as an afterthought and doing independent media as an afterthought, rather than it being like a big part of their strategy. I don't know if I don't think I released this. I actually clipped this part out of my videos. But this is where I was at with like even him potentially coming on our show. As it got later into the election or into the campaign, I was actually at the point that if they had, I know we were talking, going back and forth at times, just couldn't make anything work. But if they actually were like, hey, let's make this happen, I think I would have rejected it.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would have. Because the more I'm looking back on it, we wouldn't have wouldn't have served a purpose, because he would have been talking to the people that would have already been voting for him. It was really important for him to go on more cultural podcasts that were kind of more in like the neutral territories that he could go and try to convince people. I think that's where his time would have been better served. I think Jennifer L brought this up perfectly on our live show. Was him, like what Trump did. He went to the Joe Rogans, the Andrew Scholes, the Theo Vaughns. He didn't go to political podcasts. He did those as well, don't get me wrong. But he really put a serious focus on cultural podcasts, which those are people that are neutral for the most part. Some have their political slants, but that would have been a smarter move. And coming on with us, I think would have been a waste of time. And I would have loved to have him. And if I'm being quite frank, the only reason that it would have been great to have him is simply, and I'll be completely honest about this, would have been the ego boost for us. That's it. And when I step back and look at that, I'm like, that's not good enough for me to have him on. I'll have him on post-election and we can talk about other things. But during that election campaign, I don't think it would have been smart for him to come on with us. I think it would have been a waste of time. So.
Yeah, I have thoughts, but I do want to recognize the super chats here. So
go for
Stephen Cruz throwing some money on us. Really appreciate it. Just Me Nicole, she said, I didn't get a notification at all for tonight. That must have been on my end. I set it up. So yeah, sorry about that. Stu Olmson says, I still don't get Carney and his globalist EU clown friends are still trying to take down the USD with the help of China. Why would you want Carney in any position of power? Seriously, though, it behooves me, I guess. And Slow Chemical says, next time the Conservatives need to stop trying to attract the voters they'll never get. PP is my guy 100%. He needs more bite next time. So this is where I agree with you. I think that he needed to be in more of those cultural spaces. I think one of the things I said to you before was that he needed to do the Vashi. He needed to do like the Peter Mansbridge equivalent. I'm not quite sure who replaced him, but you know what I mean? Like
Rosie.
You have to do. No, it wasn't Rosie.
I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
I was like, no way. Anyway, I have thoughts, but I better look inside myself before I speak. But anyway, yeah, like he needed to do those things that the older crowd is watching. He needed to connect with folks that, like you said, that were not his supporters already. And like we both kind of said this earlier on, like he needed to do some of the mainstream media, but he also needed to do the independent media because like the rallies are great. I think that they are, but they also needed to free up their politicians across the party to speak to media.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think the fact that they felt like, because we've heard from a couple of them that said like they felt muzzled, they felt like they weren't able to speak freely, that everything was being run by like an iron fist from Jenny Byrne, and that conservative HQ wasn't allowing them to actually promote themselves in the way that would have felt more organic and more authentic. So instead of we and like I've heard this from many conservative folks now, and I totally agree, like using these slogans over and over again felt inauthentic, it felt fake. Uh we needed to see some authenticity from the Conservative Party. And I think that's what won Pierre so much before the replacement of Trudeau, was that he felt authentic to the anger that people were feeling in the country. He come out there and he's like, "No, this is BS, and here's how it's BS, and I'm not going to sit here and let you railroad this media interview because I'm going to tell you exactly what I think." And it was just like, thank you for cutting through the political correctness. And I think that just when we saw the campaign, everything was late. Like the fact that they released their party platform so late because they're quote unquote worried that their things were going to get stolen. I don't care. Like, you need to come out there. I think it was, I'm trying to remember the guy who ran against Pierre back in 2022.
Charest.
No, not Chirac. The other guy, lesser known. He's like for Muskoka, that area. Anyway, yeah, he had kind of gotten like ground support and was going after the conservative leadership. Didn't get it. But one of the things that he had kind of campaigned on when he was campaigning for the conservative leadership at that point in time was the idea that, I'm a bridge builder and I'm not going to ignore a good policy from either side of the aisle. If it's a good policy, it's a good policy, and we'll make sure to enact it in the best conservative way we can. And I was like, that is the messaging that needed to go out with Pierre at the same time, was that we are tired of the BS and I will fight for you tooth and nail. But if somebody's bringing something, a good policy forward, we're not going to ignore it just because we're conservatives. But it didn't feel like that. It just felt like we are conservatives. We are in our conservative cult. We're all going to say the same things at the same time. Nobody speaks unless through our divine leader, Jenny Byrne. And like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it just felt inauthentic, and it felt like it didn't pay homage to the fact that Pierre had gotten to where he was from being so authentic and so raw.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this is the funny thing. Like, this shows everything you need to know, right? I want people, just forgive me, just bear with me for literally 45 seconds, okay? But this happened in WWE, where the late 90s, early 2000s, it was like the prime time, because it finally broke in from like it just being some wrestling carnival thing to being mainstream and hitting pop culture. It was huge. And then 2010 to like 2023-ish, it was just they went down to this PG route where they kind of just like, they sanitized everything. Everything the wrestler said was scripted to the word. If you went off the script, you got reprimanded. It was awful. And you could tell the product kind of stunk. Then they finally decided, you know what, wrestlers, your characters better than we do as the creative. You do your thing. This is the storylines that we want to hit, the kind of the bullet points, but you do it your way. And holy smokes, the product went 10x than what it was. And that's what I would like to see out of the Conservative Party. Again, you said they had their talking points that they had to hit. They had to kind of say the specific things, and they couldn't really be themselves. That's why Jamil Javani's interview that night of the election, where he went off on Doug Ford, was so well liked, is because that was him. That's who he was. And you can tell he won't say nothing. I know he won't say nothing, but I'll say it for him. You can tell that he was muzzled the entire election campaign, that he couldn't do any media, couldn't go out and do anything. And he had to stay quiet because of his connections to JD Vance, likely. And you can tell that frustrated him. Then when they lost, and then he went after Doug Ford, right? I was like, bro, he went in. And I'm like, we need more of that. Like, allow some of these MPs to be themselves. Obviously, be restrained, be smart, don't say something stupid, but be authentic to you and help kind of bring more eyes to the party.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I honestly think that you could have used that relationship with JD Vance to your advantage too, right? You could have been like, listen, we're friends with these people. We'll make sure that we don't get tariffs. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry. Like, we can talk to them. Instead of like, but yeah, I feel like we needed to kind of like open that door of, do you really hate the Americans that much? I don't know. I don't know if Canadians do or don't. I know they certainly do right now.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's been fabricated, right? So it's like, how many of us have friends and family that live in the States or, have gone there on vacations? And I know one of the things that we did growing up was we always went down to Maine and to New Hampshire, and we loved it there.
Mhm.
And the fact that like we consume most of our media from the Americans, like we certainly love the things that they create and produce. So it's like, why all this hate? And I really think that we needed to kind of put a bucket of water on all that like fiery hate that was being created and kind of like draw attention to it as like, do you want the party of hate and fear, or do you want the party of unity and of negotiation and of like goodness basically? And
Mhm.
I think that that could have been a stronger pull, because eventually what happened was that Mark Carney was seen as this guy who's going to negotiate, be strong, but be kind and be fair. And like I'm hearing all these things out of the mouths of these liberal people that I know, and it's just like, holy crap! Like you've got it so twisted.
Yeah.
Like,
And it
so I
liberal
don't know.
strategy worked. That's the issue.
It did.
When you hear
It
that,
did.
like it showed like Gerald Butts, Katie Telford, you have to give them credit as much as you don't like them. That it worked. Calling the election as soon as possible, so no one knew much about Carney going in. And now you're gonna get to know about him over the next 6 to 8 months. And you realize, oh no, what did we do? And it'll be too late at that point, right? And so it was a smart move. I hate him for it, but it was smart. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely got outplayed and got got shown the door. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say that, because they got a slim minority. I know that the Liberals picked up another seat today, in
They did.
Milton. Yeah,
They made
they
they're
did.
back at 169.
They're at 169 again.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Gee.
but remember what I said on election night about the fact that um, they're basically going to go to the bloc, offer them everything under the sun, and then the bloc's going to support them.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, what did we see? uh, the Prime Minister of Quebec coming out and saying
From there.
he supports.
Oh,
No, the Prime
oh,
Minister. He did not. Oh yeah, yeah.
go
I
on.
didn't, bitch. I didn't stutter. Oh crap! I just swore. We're gonna get demonetized now.
It takes more than that. You're good.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, interesting. Oh, Kebby says, will there be a vote of non-confidence if the Western provinces leave? Yeah, like
Oh yeah.
you have to realize they fund Quebec. I don't care how much Quebec is aligned with Trudeau, or not Trudeau, with Carney. Like 100%, they're gonna go, uh-oh, that's our cash cow right now. Uh, yep, we gotta do something here. We gotta keep them in.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh man. And
100%.
I won't out you too much. I genuinely am curious because we haven't had a chance to talk, so we're gonna do this in front of everybody.
Cool.
What were your thoughts on the whole like Tim Houston Poilievre beef that's been going on behind the scenes?
Oh, stupid. I thought that was stupid.
Gotcha.
Honestly, like you did a good job summing it up in the video too, around the fact that like Tim is very much a man that's like, he is very motivated and he is going after what he thinks is best for himself and his party. Uh, and he's looking at Pierre right now as a weak link, and he knows that there's tensions that are high right now. So I think he's looking at this as an opportunity. And the fact that the reporter called that out and he was like, no, 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 no. I'm doing what's best for Nova Scotians. I was like,
Yeah.
ah, you just got caught, man. Like, just own it. Like, I think like that's the part that I wonder, like, what is going through these politicians' heads? Like, why couldn't they just be all like a shred more honest with us and just be like, you know what? Yeah, I think the Conservative Party is a hot mess right now, and I think that I'm the guy to fix it. You might actually win people over with that stance,
Mhm.
like rather than being like, you know, oh no, I totally didn't do that, because like then you just look like a snake, honestly. Like pretending that you didn't do something that you very obviously did, like that to me, like that's snakish behavior, and we all know how I feel about snakes.
Snakes in the tall grass.
So, oh, I hate
Yeah.
them.
What
So the thing is, like, I think that I would have had more respect, and I think you encapsulated it perfectly. Like, I'm very happy with a lot of the changes he's made. I think that there's some changes that haven't been aggressive enough. Him dropping the tax rate from 15 to 14, I really think that could have gone down further. Him increasing the amount of personal income tax that you're allowed to keep before you get taxed, great. You know, indexing that to inflation, fantastic. Really pushing for the one person, one record in healthcare, fantastic, amazing. Can't wait for that to roll out. It's going to be game changing for Nova Scotians. So really, really, really good things happening in the province. But if you're eyeing the federal leadership and you're saying, you know what, like I think I could do that job, just come out and be freaking honest with us. Just come out and say, you know what, I think I did a great job in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotians obviously agree because they gave me a super majority. So give me a shake at it. Like I think that that would have been a more honest and a more respectable way to handle it. But yeah, it just felt slimy, I guess, like a snake.
I think we need to make our own AI photo that Jamil put out about Ford, eh?
Oh yeah.
Dude, that was so funny. The
That
fact
killed
that
me.
he aired that was even better.
I know.
Yeah.
And
That
this is why they hate comedy, right? Unless it's like government funded, government sponsored, government script approved, like they hate it.
yeah.
And I know that people are like, oh, you know, this hour to 22 minutes doesn't mean anything. It actually does. Like the comedy that's put out really has an effect on people. I think independent media, I think comedians, I think that there's like a lot to that that people don't even realize. It permeates into people's minds, because I was looking at just comparison, and like they were ripping on Poilievre a little bit, but they were going hard on Trudeau. Like all the like basically skits of Trudeau being a bumbling fool, and them putting those out there, and like, and you know, they had the dude that plays Pierre on 22 minutes going, Chrisia, do you think that the people still love me? And she's like, ah, and like it was funny, and people identified with that, and it made it like in vogue to actually hate the prime minister. So I think that like,
Yep.
then when you saw that change where they focused solely on Pierre, and there was like next to nothing. I didn't really see anything on Carney. It was just such a massive smear campaign against Carney that I think that that
Yeah.
worked too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, said it many times, you know, politics are downstream from culture. And so whatever happens in culture is going to impact politics. And as much as we think that 22 minutes, and I do agree, is on its like, you know, it's on its last legs, it still has some punch depending on what they're putting out. And I agree. It didn't become funny or cool to hate on Trudeau until the establishment started accepting it. And which I hate. That it just showed you how much control they have, and that's why it's really important on people like us and those in the periphery of our independent media industry, that we have to really get more organized to be able to combat that, because both sides should be considered. It shouldn't be just one side pushing this machine canned sanitized message to the masses. And I know you got to leave here soon, so yeah.
I gotta leave like now. I've got a hockey to play at 10:30. But my God, you need to read some of the comments in the chat. Some of the things people are saying that I cannot vocalize out loud. It just they killed me.
Iconic.
Yeah. I gotta. Did you see the one I saw?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Chat, you guys make this so much fun every single time. We really appreciate you being here. We didn't get into the economy because I took too long, trying to figure out why Riverside wasn't connecting. Unfortunately, I guess Riverside doesn't like to try and send to Twitter and YouTube at the same time, I guess. But
It's fake news.
oh well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it. Reg, good job holding this down, getting her going. You're amazing. And you know what? You're the one who started this. You finished us out. You end us out, sir.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. And whatever it is you're doing, whether you're gonna go play hockey.
Oh, trying to read these super chats. Sorry, everyone's getting mad that we're not finishing the last 3 super chats. I'm like, sorry, we are so out of time right now. If I was able to continue this without Reg, I would continue the super chats, but he's got to leave and he's got to shut down the chat.
The 2 super chats that were left for PPC thinking of running a candidate in the Pierre Poilievre by-election. Stupid.
Yeah,
whatever. They're not going to get it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And then they like comedy.
Yeah,
that's the super chats.
And what should PP do moving forward specifically? And that's something where we can't get into that right now, but we have some ideas. No. We'll share about it on the next episode. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, the next live we'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you're going to go play hockey,
go rock a baby,
or go to the gym. Thank you so much for being with us. We love you. We're glad to have you, and we're out.
Peace.